Dr. Steel Hammer, Wladimir Klitschko.
Wladimir Klitschko made the fifth defense of his WBO heavyweight title against Jamil Big Time McCline. McCline brought intrigue to this fight, not least because of his physical attributes. At 6 foot 6 inches and tipping the scales north of 250 pounds, McCline was a rare opponent who could match up with Klitschko in terms of his size. Like Klitschko, McCline was on a hot streak, and HBO really hyped this bout up as a crossroads matchup to determine who would control the division after Lennox Lewis retired. What was expected to be a competitive shootout instead more closely resembled a one-sided sparring session. Klitschko did a masterful job of controlling the fight and picking McCline apart. The champion patiently dished out a steady diet of jabs and straight right hands before finally upping the ante and finishing McCline in the 10th round.
Nigeria and a left hook, bang on the button. That's good night. Fight over there and then.
It would be impossible to discuss the career of Wladimir Klitschko without mentioning this fight, and it would be difficult to overstate just how important this fight was to that career. In 2005, Klitschko was still widely viewed as damaged goods. The win over McCline had been a peak in the professional roller coaster before he'd plummeted back to earth in total crash and burn fashion. First, he'd been knocked out in the second round by Corey Sanders. It was a Sonny Liston versus Floyd Patterson style beatdown. Then, 3 fights later, Klitschko completely unraveled against Layman Brewster, collapsing in the 5th round. In 2003, he was viewed as the logical successor to Lennox Lewis. In 2005, he was viewed as a fragile contender with no heart, no chin, and no stamina. Klitschko's vulnerabilities were a big reason why he was picked as an opponent for HBO's new pet project, Samuel Peter. Peter was a terrifying puncher who lived up to his nickname, the Nigerian Nightmare. On paper, this fight was a stylistically compelling title eliminator. Inside the ring, the matchup produced one of the most compelling heavyweight fights of the era. After his baptism by fire against Peter, Klitschko had another chance to regain a portion of the heavyweight title. His opponent was Chris Byrd. Byrd and Klitschko shared some history together. After Byrd had defeated Vitaly Klitschko via 9th round TKO, Wladimir had delivered some familial revenge when he completely wiped the floor with Byrd. This sequel took place 6 years later, with Klitschko chasing redemption and Byrd chasing revenge. Byrd was in pursuit of revenge, but he only found another brutal beating from Klitschko.
Going to happen. Right hand by Klitschko.
The fight was a total disaster for the Flint, Michigan native. Klitschko seemingly couldn't miss with his patented 1-2 combination. Meanwhile, Byrd couldn't get a lick of offense going. Although Byrd was initially defiant in the face of Klitschko's onslaught, after round 5, he'd lost a lot of his fire, numbly accepting the beating that Wladimir doled out. Finally, in the 7th round, Klitschko sliced Byrd's face open like a Jersey tomato before dropping him and putting him away.
Blocks it, pushes the hand down.
Beautiful. Oh, there is an knockout.
Brock went by the nickname the Boxing Banker, and with the way he fought, he deserved that nickname. Brock was precise, analytical, efficient, and kind of boring. He brought that parsimonious style into his first title shot. Although Klitschko tried to get into a rhythm behind his 1-2, Brock did a better job than most at disrupting the champion's game plan. Brock fought behind a high guard, picking off shots with his mitts. This, along with Klitschko's frequent holding, caused the fight to take an ugly turn. Although Brock lost most of the early rounds, he was doing well enough that some ringsiders wondered if he could duplicate Layman Brewster's miraculous comeback. Instead, midway through the 5th, Klitschko found his groove, finally establishing his jab. After sweeping the next round by an even bigger margin, Klitschko poleaxed Brock with a concussive right hand in the 7th round. After the death of Genghis Khan in 1277 AD, the Mongol Empire was divided into a series of smaller kingdoms. While Ogedai Khan ruled as Great Khan from the tent city of Karakoram, Tuluai Khan ruled the Ulis of the Mongol heartland, and Batu Khan controlled the western steppe. Meanwhile, Genghis' second oldest son, Chagatai, controlled most of what is now Central Asia. Ruslan Chagayev was an alphabet titleist in the 2000s, and I'm pretty confident his surname is derived from Chagatai Khan. Although I can't prove that, I think it all adds up, given how similar Chagayev and Chagatai sound, as well as the fact that Chagayev hails from Uzbekistan, which was part of what was once the Chagatai Khanate. Unlike the notoriously brutal and hot-tempered Chagatai Khan, Ruslan Chagayev was a patient, restrained fighter. A highly decorated amateur, he had excellent footwork and was highly adept at ducking and slipping under punches before delivering his own clinical counters from his southpaw stance. This tactical approach inside the ring helped Chagayev build a 25-0 record, and it also enabled him to break Nikolai Valuev's fabled unbeaten streak. But these tactics were a disaster against Klitschko. Largely content to look for opportunities to counter from the outside, Chagayev was dropped early in the fight and was busted up and frustrated throughout. The fight was eventually stopped after a particularly one-sided 9th round. Fast Eddie Chambers brought a 35-1 record into this fight, including a 5-fight winning streak. He'd built his status as a top contender with blistering hand speed, great defense, and plenty of heart and stamina to make up for his undersized dimensions. This fight began with Chambers covering up and looking for counters, while Klitschko worked behind his jab. Chambers recovered well enough after being tagged in the 2nd, but in the ensuing rounds, Klitschko continued to dictate the action, piling up points with his superior height and reach. Although Chambers' corner implored their man to get inside and throw more punches, that was never Eddie's style. He'd made it to this point by being a slick defensive boxer, and it was too late to try and turn him into anything else. Klitschko was winning round after round, but head trainer Emanuel Stewart wasn't shy about sharing his feelings with Klitschko before the beginning of the 12th round.
Your volume of punches is too low. You're not punching. And it's not like you're tagged. You just got to let your punches go, Vladimir. Just let them go. This round is going to be hard. He's going to run. That's all he's going to do. You never let him get to the 12th round. He's going to run down. But you got to punch. Okay, well, you got to try. You got to. You do not need to have another bullshit decision. I'm telling you.
Even after berating Klitschko on the stool, he chased his fighter to the center of the ring to deliver a few more choice words to make his point. Klitschko came out with a fire that had been missing all fight. Chasing Chambers around the ring, he found a home for a compact left hook that knocked Chambers into outer space, depositing the challenger face down and totally unconscious, his neck contorted at an alarming angle. After sweeping through the 2004 Athens Games, gold medalist Alexander Povetkin got out to a promising start as a professional, beating solid opponents like Friday Ahunanya, Imamu Mayfield, and Larry Donald inside his first 15 fights. After beating Chris Byrd and Eddie Chambers in consecutive wins, Povetkin was practically on a glide path to a collision with Klitschko in late 2008. But those plans were interrupted when Povetkin severely injured his foot during training in October of that year. His recovering ligament forced a detour. He eventually outpointed the aforementioned Ruslan Chagayev to win the WBA title. After 4 title defenses, he finally met Klitschko in a unification bout in Moscow. Almost from the opening bell, this one gave fight fans unpleasant memories of the title reign of John Ruiz. Klitschko had been criticized for his jab and grab tactics off and on for years, but in this fight, he took things to the extreme. Klitschko was eventually deducted a point in the 11th for his grappling tactics, but by then the fight was in the bag. Klitschko scored a total of 5 knockdowns throughout the 12 rounds, although several of those appeared to involve pushes from the Ukrainian. In between the knockdowns and the incessant clinching, Klitschko busted Povetkin up with accurate jabs and right hands, leaving Povetkin battered and frustrated at the final bell. Kubrat Pulev of Bulgaria was the next European big man to try his luck against the champion. Pulev was a skilled, ambitious boxer-puncher, and at 6 foot 4 1/2 inches and 250 pounds, he was the rare Klitschko opponent who wasn't at a significant size disadvantage. Pulev was rowdy as the fight began, sneering angrily as he fired his right hand at Klitschko's chin. Although he landed several times and backed Klitschko up, he got more resistance than he bargained for when Klitschko more than returned the favor with a pair of concussive knockdowns. After a slower second round, Pulev again turned up the heat in the third, and again found himself on the canvas. In the fourth, Pulev showed more restraint and managed to land cleanly a few times, but in the fifth, he again could not resist the temptation to turn the fight into a slugfest. After landing a nice combination, he made the fatal mistake of standing right in front of Klitschko without moving his head. Klitschko punished him with a left hook that knocked Pulev clear into next week. At the count of 6, Pulev managed to rise ever so slightly onto his elbows, but he was much too far gone, slumping back onto the canvas as Tony Weeks waved off the fight. Klitschko was the winner in his 17th consecutive title defense.